Welcome to Free Your Mind Reviews. This is Chris Johnson with a review of the rhythm section. So, the rhythm section stars Blake Lively as a woman who guns for revenge after she finds out that the plane crash that killed her family was actually a terrorist attack. So, this one's a little bit of a mixed bag for me. Um, I feel like the acting is pretty good. Uh, I think Blake Lively, I actually think, is very good in the movie and has been very good in a number of films, in my opinion, from The Town to The Shallows to A Simple Favor. And Jude Law, for the second year in a row, plays a very good mentor, teacher to a badass female action character with Captain Marvel last year, and now this. Um, and also, I feel the movie is very, in my opinion, very well directed. And Reed Moreno is a name that I'm going to definitely try to remember. I feel like she brings the right tone, the right intensity, the right visual style to the film, and I'm a huge fan of the way she shoots the film and shoots certain scenes and certain action scenes with longer takes and a very visceral, intense feel to the movie. If anything, this movie for me is kind of the opposite of The Last Full Measure, for example, where the material was very interesting and very potential filled in that movie, and the directing let it down. Whereas for this film, the directing kind of raises it up because material wise, the movie is very cramped, very cramped. Uh, this is actually a case to me where a movie's too short because they cram too much into it. I feel like from where the character starts, 8 months wasn't. For example, you know, she leads a very hard life in the beginning of the film because of her guilt, her grief over what happened to her family, and I feel like from where she finds out, from when she finds out what happens to her family, what really happened, to learning the skills that she needs to learn to be a killer, she needs to, that she needs to be to actually trying to take part in these activities was a little bit too short or too small of a time to be believable for her to be successful. Uh, I'm just gonna say it right now, 8 months. I think it should have been years. Should have been like Batman. Batman took what, 7, 8 years? Varies depending on who's writing the story to become who he is. I feel like she should have had way more time. Uh, um, uh, so that's a little bit of a problem. Um, Maybe the biggest problem to me is the targets, the villains, if you will, have absolutely no presence in the film. You're told that they did this. You're told that they did that. They have no character in this movie whatsoever. You watch something like, say, a 24, which, I always go back to in a movie like this, or 24, or Bourne Ultimatum, or the Bourne trilogy in general. And the villains have just as much of a presence as Jack Bauer, just as much of a presence as Jason Bourne. And they don't in this movie. And because they don't, You don't feel the danger that she's trying to stop. You feel the revenge, but you don't feel anything beyond the revenge. And if there's one problem with the revenge and as a whole, as is that it's dependent solely on Blake Lively's performance, because you'd only get visual snippets of the family. You don't get actual character scenes. Like, I think I would have had eh, actual character moments and character scenes, you know, of how she was and how she was with her family before uh, uh, the death, before the accident, before the terrorist bombing, that you also don't see, which I felt could have helped the movie if you got to see more of her pre pain, um, and more. It would have been nice to see some more character based scenes of what her family was like, or her talking about them, her thinking about them, um, and more about it would have, it would have I think really helped her transition from potential filled girl to, grief filled sufferer to, you know killer of terrorist scum. you know those other characters, those male characters that I've mentioned earlier, had those, you know transitions, in my opinion, and you can really compare how they were at the beginning of their story to the arc, to how they what they became, um, and it was very very effective and made those stories just more memorable, in my opinion, and that's why I'm such a huge fan of them. And if the writing could have took us further on the journey, and been a little bit more character based in that regard, um, I think it would have been a more memorable movie. Um, One thing I actually do like that I think some other people didn't like is I do like the amount of time she screws up, especially considering the amount of training she actually had. It was kind of crazy to throw her into the field like she's thrown into, and she does not do things really right for most of it. Um, if I, if the, In my opinion, if I would have done one thing different, it would have been I would have had her screwing up maybe a little earlier, or maybe like in the 45 to 60-minute mark, something like that, so that she would have more time being more believably effective. Um, Otherwise, she's kind of otherwise, the way you look at it, she's kind of an incompetent goof for a little bit too long in the movie, and doesn't really become the quote unquote hero that you want her to be until, I don't know, 5 minutes, I guess. I'm not sure. But I probably would have had her be competent a little bit longer in the movie. You know, just to make it better. I think Batman Begins is what this movie wanted to be. If you really look at it, it's like if you really think about it, it's kind of like Batman Begins in a way, but it's way too short, and it's not structured as well. So you don't get you get enough time, but you see a lot of time with the training, like Batman Begins, but you don't get time with his family or her family like you did with like Bruce Wayne's in that film. And you get moments of her screwing up, like Bruce would screw up here and there in Batman Begins, but you don't get enough time of showing of seeing why you know why this person needs to be doing what they're doing as opposed to anybody else doing it. what makes her special? What makes her fitting for this work besides just the desire to do this work? Um, just a little changes. I think just a little improvements here and there. I think in the writing and in the character would have made this a little more memorable. And that's why it's a little bit of a mixed bag. A little. That's why I felt a little off while the movie was ending. But I feel, personally, I would like to see Blake Lively do another type of movie like this. I think she's very, very good in this film. Love Jude Law in this type of character. Um, Sterling K. Brown's kind of wasted in this film, which is such a shame. You don't waste Sterling K. Brown, even when he has such a small role like he did in Black Panther. The man is so talented that he can make it memorable. Just give him good material, you know. Um, Other than those three, there's not really anybody really to speak of cast wise in the film. And but Reed Morano, her name, even with the flaws in this movie, which really geared more towards the screenplay, which is written by the same writer that the book wrote. Um, the directing is what really keeps it afloat. The lead actor, the lead actress, and his directing is really keeps this afloat. So even with this movie being a mixed bag, I think we should definitely look out for me Reed Morano's name, because she's the one who makes the movie even a bit as entertaining as it is. So that's my opinion on the rhythm section, and have a good one.